Okay, welcome to the screencast for isosceles and equilateral triangles. So the first thing I want you to notice is I've highlighted a couple things. First, this is what we call the vertex angle, and this is different than the two base angles. The two base angles are congruent, and they're the angles that are across from the two legs that are congruent. Okay, so the congruent sides of an isosceles triangle are called legs. The other side is called the base. The base is the one side that is not congruent to the other two. The angles at the base of the triangle are called base angles. Alright, so theorem 4.3, base angles theorem. If two sides of a triangle are congruent, then the opposite angles are congruent. Alright, so if this side, and the angle across from it, so if those two sides are congruent, that means the angles opposite of them must also be congruent. Okay, so let's go ahead and find the value of y. So because these two sides, these two legs are congruent, the angles across from them must be congruent as well. So 50 degrees must be equal to y. Let's give another one a shot. Okay, so once again, this leg are congruent. That means the angles across from them must also be congruent. So that means 4y minus 2 plus 4y minus 2. Notice this is a right triangle. And so the two angles in a right triangle, the two angles that are not 90, must be complementary. They must add to 90. So these two angles should equal 90. And remember, they are the same measure. That's how I knew they both were 4y minus 2. All right, combine like terms. Add the 4 to the other side. 8y equals 94. Divide by 8. Let's see. Awesome. So 8y equals 94. Divide by 8. We get y is equal to 11.75. Now another way to do this is right? If we knew those two angles are congruent, they must be the same. So we know 4y minus 2 must be 45 degrees because 90 plus 45 is equal to 180. Remember, the number of angles in a triangle is 180. So I split the 90 divided by 2, and so that means each angle is 45, so you can set them equal to 45. Add 2, 4y equals 47, so y is 47 over 4, which is 11.75. Either one of these works. Okay, so the converse of the base angle theorem. If two angles of a triangle are congruent, then the sides opposite them are congruent as well. So if our two angles are congruent, so if these two angles are congruent, that means the sides opposite of them must be congruent as well. This leg and this leg must be congruent. Okay, so notice that we have two angles that are congruent. That means the sides across from them must also be congruent. So 12 must equal x plus 3. Subtract 3. 9 is equal to x. And over here, once again, these two angles are congruent, so the sides opposite of them must be congruent as well. 16 equals y plus 4. Subtract 4. 12 is equal to y. Alright, theorems 4.5 and 4.6. The equilateral theorem. If a triangle is equilateral, then it's equiangular. So equilateral means all lengths are the same length. All sides are the same length. Equiangular means all angles are congruent. Okay, so if a triangle is equilateral, all the sides are the same length, then all the angles must be equiangular as well. If all the angles are the same measure, it's equiangular, then it's equilateral. So if it's equilateral, must be equiangular. If it's equiangular, it must be equilateral. So continue on. Find the value of x, then find each side of the equilateral triangle. Okay. So we know that all three of these sides must be the same length. So 3x has to equal 2x plus 10. They'll have to be the same length. So subtract 2x on both sides, and we find x is equal to 10. Now, we have to find the value of x, we're done, and now find each side of the equilateral triangle. So all the sides are the length, so you just have to pick one side and substitute in x equals 10. So QR is equal to 3x. So 3 times 10 is 30. Okay, so remember that's QR. So we have 3 sides, right? We have to find each side length, QR, RT, and QT. And guess what? It's equilateral, so they're all the same length. Yay, I just had to pick one. All right, algebra review, solving proportions. A proportion is an equation with 2 equal ratios. Proportions can be solved using cross multiplication. So sometimes I've heard the middle school that people come from call this crisscross applesauce, butterfly method, whatever suits your fancy. All right, solve each proportion. So basically you're cross multiplying, crisscross applesauce, butterfly method, whatever you want to talk about. You're going to take x times 16, so 16x, equals 4 times 3, so 12, divide by 16 on both sides. 12 over 16, well, we can simplify that out. Let's see, each of them are divisible by 4, so divide the top and bottom by a common factor 4, and we get x is 3/4. So it's helpful if you pause the video and give this a shot yourself. All right, crisscross, 30x is equal to 35, so x is equal to, let's see, divide by 30. 35 over 30, these are both divisible by 5, so this is 7 over 6. Ooh, more difficult this time. So we have 2 times x plus 1 equals 12. So you could divide both sides by 2. That would be fine. I'm going to go ahead and distribute this out. So I have 2x plus 2 equals 12. Subtract 2. 2x equals 10. Divide by 2. And x is equal to 5. And last one. All right, cross multiply. So 2 times 2x is 4x. 5 times x plus 3. You know what? I'm going to write it out nicely the first time. 2 times 2x equals 5 times x plus 3. Okay, multiply it out. So this is 4x equals 5x plus 15. Remember, we're distributing this out. Let's subtract 5x. Negative x equals 15. Divide by negative 1 on both sides. X is negative 15. Cool. All right, determine which side and angles of the triangle are congruent. Okay, so we know that those 2 angles are congruent. We don't know about that third, but because those 2 angles are congruent, that means the 2 sides opposite must be congruent as well. So this side length right here, we call RS, right? Segment RS must be congruent to this segment, which is TS. You can say like SR is congruent to ST, right? It's referring to the same sides. Okay, let's see. So we know that these two side lengths are congruent. So the angles across, these 2 angles must be congruent. So you can say angle W is congruent to angle V, or we can name it in the triplet UWV. So angle UWV must be congruent to angle what is this? UVW. Okay, angle UVW. Either one of these is correct. You either can name it with a single letter or a triplet of 3. So that's it for this assignment. I hope you guys have a great rest of the day.